Welcome to the Wolf Connection podcast. I'm your host, John Kalfa. Let's talk about some wolves. An absolute pleasure to have back with us just on the podcast, but he came to Wolf Connection just a couple of weeks ago for our work with wolves. Pat Jennings, he's a wolf watcher, a wolf tracker. If you see the Wolfmobile in Yellowstone, you know exactly who I'm talking about. He is currently in Cadillac, Michigan, with his daughter, Kristin Parks, who also joins us here on Zoom. Thank you both for coming on the podcast and sharing your journey and your story. How are you guys doing in Michigan?
We're doing great, and thanks so much for having us on. We are honored to be on the program.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
No, you're welcome. Pat, let me start with you. How did you get involved in this wolf watching journey? Because you started, you were saying just before we started that you grew up in LA and now you're more engrossed in nature. So how did that journey begin for you?
In 2007, I took a trip, a solo road trip after some major health issues. And I entered the park real early in the morning in April of 2007. And this wolf walked or kind of jogged alongside of me by my car. And there was no other cars around. I was the only one there. And he jogged alongside of my car, it went right in front of me on the road, and then stepped up on a little berm or hill. And I leaned over in my car and snapped off. These are the days of the old school cameras, not the phone cameras or anything. And I got a picture, and I keep that picture with me all the time. And it was an amazing moment. I don't even know how to describe what it meant to me, because at the moment it was just like, wow, I saw this wolf, and he was within 50 yards of me. So, when you think about why you love the wolves, I think your first day doesn't answer that question yet, because it just pulled you in. Mm-hmm. It was possibly, some people would say, oh, that was cool, I saw a wolf. But for me, it was just like an aha moment that just kind of went, this is incredible. This is so cool to see this.
Mm-hmm. And now when you carry it around, what's the reminder now? Why do you keep it with you all the time?
Well, now that I've learned and spent more time with them, what they represent, I've gone through a lot of physical issues, illnesses and whatnot, and the wolves are so resilient. They're like the warriors of species. Mm-hmm. And they inspire me to carry on, like to just keep on with it, because of things that I've had going on in my life. And they are just you just learn that they're that special for some reason to you, and then slowly, when you start learning more about them, you realize why.
Kristin, what did that story mean to you when your dad told you the first time? So what was the impact that it had on you when you first heard that?
So everything since that moment has changed my dad in all the best of ways. It's really brought out the best in him, and probably in a way that we could have, well, he didn't expect it either, but there was such a passion so early on that came through once he had that experience that was very captivating to hear his excitement. He was like a little kid calling me, telling me about his experiences in Yellowstone, sending me pictures, videos that now my 3 and 11-year-old look forward to. Like, is Jeepaw in Yellowstone? Like, what kind of new videos do we have? And so we still interact that way. But it really, and my dad is a big kid at heart anyways. He's always been goofy and fun, but this is something with the childlike excitement, kind of like that Christmas morning as a kid. I feel like that's how he is every single time he goes to the park, and he goes, every 6 to 8 weeks then?
Yeah.
But from that very beginning, it's really just, kind of lit a fire in him that's not only been passionate, but he's connected and he's advocating and he's, networking and making big changes, across the board, whether it's, just small town, in the local sense of the park or, in the political forum too, for a lot of things that we're trying to get to change. So it's been in record time, because what did you say that was? That was 2007?
Yeah, and then 2017 is when I really got going and spending more time when I fully retired. And up to last year was my big year. I spent about 75 to 80 days there. And I'd gone like 7 or 8 different trips. And that was including that the park was closed for 2 months. So I really spent a lot of my time there last year because I just dove all in. It was like, what do you want to do today? I want to go to Yellowstone. Let's go. Like what could be better?
Right.
I mean, where in the United States do you get to see wolves and you get to go and follow them and monitor their behavior and learn some of the collar numbers. And, there's the best of people there too.
Absolutely.
So it's a place where, I mean, like you said, the childlike energy comes out. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I've spent longer stretches, like 20 days there. The 20th day, I feel the same way I did the first day. So it's a special place for sure.
I mean, because I read you, thank you, by the way, for typing out your bio for me, because it was really good. It was, I felt your anticipation towards your retirement in 2017 as you wrote that down on the page, because you could see, you had your first sighting. You actually had an encounter or a sighting of 06 when she was still alive. And then right when you got to 2017, I think it was in bold letters, fully retired. And so then you really got immersed in it. And what was it like to get the present from your wife for the Wolfmobile? How did that come about? What was first of all, how did they keep that from you? And then what was the surprise and how did that happen?
Yeah, that was another game changer because my wife and I would go there for a week, and we were there in 2012 in April when we saw 06, and we had an incident where 06 howled about 100 yards from us, and it just made the hair on your arm go up. It was just so cool because she had been collared. She's collared as Wolf 832, but we got to see her howl. And then, of course, unfortunately, the next December was when she was shot. But that experience, after that, my wife and I had talked about putting some on the car because I have a 4Runner. And we were just talking about, let's put 06 on there, or let's put a picture that we have on there. Because she's an artist. So it was a slam dunk for her to do something like that for me. So we talked about it. And finally, up to about 2017, she says, I need your car for a few days. It's my birthday or anniversary or something. I don't remember exactly which. But so she took the car. And I'm thinking, she's got something going on here. But when she comes into it, the driveway with the car, I was like, oh, my God. This is like crazy. It is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And the reason why I said game changer is I have people stop me probably 3 or 4 times a week to take a picture of it. And I probably get stopped or get at least a thumbs up 15 times a week. Mm-hmm. And that also led to my advocacy, because when people would stop me, I would start to do and you have to do a quick spiel because it's not like somebody you're going to sit down with for a while. So I would just start to tell them about, hey, make sure that you're writing to your senators or your governor about wolves. We don't want them. We don't want to. What I started using was, I don't think you want your tax dollars going to eliminate these animals. So the Wolfmobile became an advocacy mobile right from the beginning. And I didn't even think it would be that way, but people are enamored with this car. They notice it all the time. When I'm in Yellowstone, I go through the gate, they go up, Wolfmobile, go on.
It's very fun to ride in it with him. The couple of trips that I've been able to do that, because he does get stopped. It's definitely celebrity status in the park. And it's kind of fun. I think, we try to kind of go back, and for my dad, it's probably harder to think about when we weren't going very often and we didn't know a lot about the park or the animals or much about it. And so when you see somebody that clearly has a passion and that will probably be able to answer some of your questions, not everybody's going on a guided tour when they go through the park. And so my dad's a, very personable guy too, and obviously loves, sharing that story. So it's been kind of fun just to see that. And I think that, it's kind of like the big caravan of all of these wolf watchers. You get a call on the CB radio and it's like, oh, wait, we've got a spotting over here. We've got one bedded down over here. And so it's like, come on, like everyone's throwing their scopes in and like, let's go. And it's like, I'm thinking that some people driving by is like, I'm going to follow that wolf guy. Like he probably knows where it's at. So it's probably a pretty entertaining caravan look.
That does happen too.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So Kristin, just explain how that's like for you, those first couple trips, because Pat, your dad's fully in it. So for you, what are those first couple of trips like for yourself and your family when you finally get to go in there? And how does that change your life and how you perceive wolves and the parks in general?
Well, I feel like we started, I don't know what year was it, the first trip when I was younger that we ever went. I'm not sure how old. I feel like I was maybe about 14. Does that sound about right? 12 or 14. And I had never done, I grew up in, Long Beach area, just all parts of Southern California. So again, not really in the middle of nature by any means, more like a concrete jungle, as they say. But when I first went is kind of when I fell in love with, now my dad will understand this, and I know this is a show about wolves, but like my heart belongs to bison. Like I am a buffalo lover. Like it's my most favorite animal. And it's so funny because I don't know if I've ever met anybody like that. There's just something, and I think they're cute, and that probably is just kind of odd to everybody else, but I enjoy them so much. And that kind of started my love for the park in Yellowstone from the get-go. So it was always a special place for my dad and I. And so that I think was like a bond. It was always a bonding trip. A lot of time spent in the car, a lot of time narrating, right? Like that's what everybody does. That was before YouTube and all that cool stuff where you'd have like videos of like animals and people are like dubbing over, kind of making funny comments, which we're definitely known for sure. But it definitely was a game changer the last time I went before this past trip. So that was 2014. I had kind of a break in employment for teaching, and Dad just, he really wanted me to go where it wasn't too busy. He didn't want me to go in the summertime, things like that. And it just never worked out with my teaching schedule. And so I had the opportunity to go in November. I'm actually looking at the picture right here. And, we had rented scopes, and this was very early on in the whole deal, but I do remember having that feeling that I could see how it would be something that could easily take over once you got hooked. So not just, it's kind of cool with all the big, bulky, professional looking, like I'm a big deal, like people driving by, like, yeah, this is a rented scope. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm enjoying it. I really am.
Yeah.
But just like Dad said, like all the people, it's really interesting, everybody that you meet. And then just, there's a camaraderie there that's really, that made me feel really good just being there myself. And then also my dad spending a lot of time there. It's like, okay, I don't really want him, out alone by himself. That would be cool if that was his thing. But not only, is the park there and the wolves, but just a great group of people that's really done some amazing things. And so my little family knows all about it. We definitely have souvenirs and artifacts and shirts. And I'm looking at a mouse pad and a coaster. It's like all over our house, right? Yeah. Like, that's our jam. And so I think that it's a very bonding experience. And I think for my kids and my husband to hear about how that made my dad and I closer, I think that the only thing they could do would be to kind of, open arms, very open. He's yet to take my husband or daughter, so they have not yet been. So we're trying to figure that out because they know it's more than just a bucket list thing. It's definitely something to do with Wolfman Pat over here. So Yeah, it's been all positive, all good stuff ever since the start.
Tell us a little bit about like the logistics of your trips there. Do you camp in the park? Do you stay in hotels nearby? Like, what does your day look like while you're there?
I stay in Gardner all the time because that's the only way to get in during the winter time. No other entrances are open, so you have to go from Gardner, and it's very convenient to stay right in Gardner because you're right there at the entrance of the park. I have a couple of different places I stay at, and have made some connections there with some people, so I have some pretty nice places to stay. And that's just a great place to start from, is to go right in from Gardner. So it's convenient and it's close. So that's pretty much the only other place to really stay, especially in the wintertime, is Cook City or Silvergate over there in the northeast entrance. But those are the only two you could stay at in the wintertime. So I like to stay in Gardner, and there's a couple more nicer places to eat and things to do. And well, not really things to do, but you're just there. So it's
and it's an early day if you go with Dad. I mean, you are getting up. It is definitely still dark outside. It's like, pack your food. We're on our way. We're not going to miss anything. You see like silhouettes of everybody setting up on the hill with their scopes, and it's like you're in it for the long haul. I
always warn people before we go. I go, okay, listen, we're getting up at dark 30. We're going to be one of the first out there.
Yep.
If you can't do that, just stay in bed and I'm going. Okay. So here's the story here.
I mean, I love it because when we went, and next time we go, we definitely have to hook up with you, because I know you were there because we saw the Wolfmobile, and I know you were hanging out with John Wood, who we can't seem to get rid of, by the way. He's back again for another week of volunteering here at Wolf Connection. So John is big. He's back again. So John, and he also says hello, by the way. Hi to both of you. He told me to say hi. But
he's the best.
You guys said something perfect, is that it's such a great community up there, because when Steve and myself, Elena and Renee went, it's as if we were there. We've been going for years. And I know it wasn't Stephen and Renee's first trip. It was Elena and mine for our first trip. But the camaraderie around everyone that is in the park that early in the morning to help each other out is such an amazing thing to witness. And it's something I think that's needed more in the world, especially now. But it's just such a great community to be there. Like you say, you have places to stay, Pat. There's people that are going to help you out with your scopes and things like that. What was that initial reaction like when you brought in the Wolfmobile? When the Wolfmobile was done, what did some of the individuals say there that have been wolf watching for a while?
Well, I think they really liked it. They, it said a lot for someone that would want to have that on their vehicle all the time. So I think they kind of knew that I was serious about my wolf watching and being there. And it's just a factor that I don't even know how to say it. They just know that you're really involved when you have something like that on your car, because it takes up the whole side of the car on both sides. So it's not like it's like this little sticker or something. It's all there. And then my wife also put "Keep on Howling" on the front, and it says "Canis lupus" on the back, because I have had people stop me and say, "Hey, are those your dogs?" And I'm like, "No, let me tell you something. The wolf there." So it's been great, because the Wolfmobile is pretty much known all over there now. So
do you consider yourself a wildlife watcher, or are you a wolf watcher? Meaning, like, if there were not wolves in Yellowstone, would you still be out there, you think?
I think I would, but not as much. When I send videos to them and other people, like the foxes, bears, bison, I love all the wildlife, but obviously focus on the wolf. And then, the wolf kind of drew me in also because how persecuted they are and how many myths there are about wolves that people just don't understand. And I'm sure you guys kind of realize that too. It's like Little Red Riding Hood's around the corner or something. And it's like, people just want to go, wait, no. Or people are fascinated when I tell them there's never been a documented wolf attack in the lower 48. Or like they said, well, have you ever walked up on a wolf? And I said, well, let's say 100 yards. And when they look at you, they go the other way. They don't go towards you. And they almost don't believe you.
Right.
And I think our goal in advocacy is to educate people that this is a necessary apex predator in the ecosystem. And it's an animal that needs to be there. I don't know. Some of the Western culture is very anti-wolf, and it frustrates us to see that because, we don't understand it because we see these animals and we're just in awe of them. And I mean, it's hard to understand why they want to shoot them. So it's just like, it's frustrating sometimes.
Now, I can't tell, because we're looking for wolves too. So when we went there, it seemed that everyone was looking for wolves. Is that an accurate depiction, or are we're just following wolf folks? But are there groups of people out there looking for grizzlies exclusively in the same way that there are these groups that are following wolves around, grizzlies, fox, elk, bison, etc.?
Not so much. I know there's a gentleman, Bill Hamlin, who is exclusively grizzlies. But as far as groups of people, I don't know of a lot of groups that are into the other animals. But I think most of us just love all the animals,
right? Even
though if we're together, we'd rather see a wolf. But if a fox came by with
a badger,
fluffy tail, or a badger,
oh yeah,
excuse me, or a bison rolling around, or like this, they're in the rut right now coming up, so they do some real interesting things when they're doing that. So, and then the grizzly wolf interaction too is awesome to see. Yeah,
we saw some awesome pictures of that.
And that's kind of neat too. And I think sometimes you run into, and Dad will be able to speak to this more so, but I always think of, growing up watching Yogi Bear, right? And he's going into Jellystone, and it's very like bears, right? I mean, I don't know if there's wolves in those cartoons or not, but some people, Yellowstone's been on their bucket list. And so they want to see a bear, right? Like that's their thing. That's kind of, a little bit different, though. It's not really the way it's portrayed in Jellystone in the cartoons there. It's definitely a different experience. And I would definitely say better. But I do feel like when you're mentioning other animals, it was kind of fun to pick up on some of the jargon, some of the different insider terms that I had to learn a different language when I was there around everybody. And I kept hearing somebody say like, oh man, I logged a 3-dog day. I'm like, yeah, is this something I'm supposed to know? Like, what does that mean? I know the whole, dog and wolf connection. And it's like, okay, so if you can see, if you end up seeing in one day a coyote and a wolf and a fox, you get to say you put in a 3-dog day, and man, those are bragging rights. That is a big old deal. We're still not sure. And especially for some that are going to listen to this, there is a habituated fox over Coke City, right?
By Round Prairie.
Yeah, we all haven't decided if that counts as part of the whole 3-dog day. I mean, that fox is not scared of anyone. But anyway, so there are definitely interests, I think, even from the wolf watchers to see other animals. Definitely the moose is kind of fun to be able to see the elk, to hear the elk like bugle. Like, I think it all is just kind of brings it all for full circle, just this very harmonious environment with all the wildlife is a pretty amazing experience when you put it all together.
And I guess because wolves are they range so widely that I guess if you're following wolves, you're really seeing the whole park. You're seeing all the species in the park because they interact and they're hunting and they have grizzly interactions, etc. But I have kind of a strange question, Pat. Other than your love for wolves, what do you think that all of the serious wolf watchers have in common, other than their interest in wolves?
Boy, that's a good question, because first of all, that connects us obviously with the wolves, but they're just some really good people that enjoy being out in nature and also enjoy helping people. As for instance, when you guys were there, hey, you want to see the wolves? You want to look in our scopes? You want to see where they are? And one of the coolest things out there is when somebody that's never seen a wolf before has seen a wolf and see their reaction. It's heartwarming. It's like so cool, because I've had a lady literally jump in my arms before and said, "Oh, you made my trip." that's the first wolf I've ever seen. Oh, I love you. And then she literally jumped and hugged me. I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. But whenever somebody gets to see a wolf for the first time, it really makes you feel good that you were able to show them what the wolves are. And then that also helps our advocacy, that more people know about them, and what a great species and important species they are to the ecosystem. It's not just watching them. We have a higher purpose to make sure we educate people about them. And I think that's what we all have in common out there, is we all want to do that. Like, if you just talk to John Wood, and we're good buddies. And he talked about that too, where it's just like, hey, do you know where they are? Or we'll be in a row. And sometimes if you're looking for them, you just can't spot them. You're looking in your scope. Hey, Taylor, you got them. Mm-hmm. And she goes, hey, Pat, you got them. And I tell you one thing that is really cool too. If you're ever out there scoping for wolves and you're next to Rick McIntyre, this guy can tell stories like, you think you would get tired of him, but you don't. You just like position yourself close to him. And when he starts talking about a story, you're just like, you're in your scope, but you're listening, and it's people like him and Lori, Taylor, Jeremy, unbelievable wolf people. And they're a pleasure to be around. But I think they all have the same thing. They all love to help other people see the wolves and enjoy them.
And I think everybody really has a different personality. I feel like there's some people that are, very scientific in nature and maybe have field notes almost, where it's like, oh, it's a little intimidating. I don't know if I could even really add to this conversation, but there's no judgment. It's all very open. They just want the more people to appreciate and, gain awareness. And then there's some, we've got a lot of, dads and grandpas, so there's some corny dad jokes happening for sure when we're looking through the scopes.
Those are good.
Those are really good. Yeah, like don't badger somebody who hasn't seen a badger yet. And we've got dog piles and wolf clumps, and like Dad said, I did feel very welcome when I showed up with him. Obviously people had heard about me, but I knew that, he was very well respected too. And so I wasn't intimidated by being around these veteran wolf watchers. I just kind of became one of them and was cracking my own mom jokes, teacher jokes, all that stuff.
That was October of 2019.
October, yes.
Yeah, she was there last time for a week. It was October of 2019.
Yep. Or 20?
No, that would have been last. 13.
Yeah.
No, was it?
I was 20. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was October of 2020.
Yep.
She was there with me.
Oh, October 2020. Okay. Yeah. Kristin, what's it like for you as a teacher to be in that setting, to see, just like you said, the teaching aspect of it, the camaraderie end of it, and then if you guys can get into the advocacy a little bit too about what you both are really doing, because it seems as though it's a lot of word of mouth, which from some of the individuals we've had recently, that seems to be almost the best way, is to really speak about this in layman terms and not really trying to get too wordy or educational about it. And it's more of just word of mouth. We've had a couple of hunters on here that say, I just tell them how I feel with my hunting buddies. Is that typical of what you guys try to do? Or how do you guys balance that advocacy part of it when you're out there wolf watching as well?
Do you want me to talk about the teaching part? So that has been a game changer. So I've always taught elementary school. And for the past 6 years, I was at the college level teaching teachers. And so I didn't have as much of an opportunity as I did this past year. I was teaching virtual 5th grade. And I had started actually after my trip with my dad. And I was looking over the science standards for teaching 5th grade. And I noticed it was like, wait just a minute. I think I can talk about wolves in Yellowstone and I can hook these kids, right? I can engage them. They've all had a really tough time being virtual with, the pandemic and things like that. I wrote a couple of them down. So a couple of the standards are like describing kind of like the food chain, the food web, right? So plants, animals, decomposers, and the environment. So I thought, okay, Yellowstone all day long. I can definitely work that in. And then also another one that I actually went a little bit further with was kind of what you're saying with advocacy. So one of the standards, and these are required standards, right? Is how you can gain information about individual communities using science ideas to protect the Earth's environment. Like, what? Like, I have a great resource. His name's Dad. So I had just, had this great experience, and I was fortunate enough to connect with the 06 legacy. So Carol Miller, she was a great resource for me getting educational information, got some books into my hands. Definitely was showing my students a lot of like virtual tours, and we were reading a lot of articles in that way. And it was so interesting because their interest about wolves made them less intimidated to read material that I didn't think that they would read before. So I kind of was trying to just see, I'm like, I don't want to project too much. I know this is my jam, but if I'm passionate, they can be, it's kind of a win-win. And so they did quite a few different projects, art projects, science, writing, things like that. And so some of them got really, really interested. And so they kind of took it a little bit further and, definitely set them up to be following some research and some advocacy groups as well. And so I think that the connection, like Dad said, there's myths out there and persecution happening. And I think my students would relate to wolves in that way that they, some of my students have, come from, a hard background, maybe some trauma, some things like that, and need that like tough exterior, kind of like a wolf, but also are just such good people, just like the resiliency and the warrior kind of part of a wolf. I feel like some of those kiddos could relate to that a lot and kind of want a second chance and kind of have had that experience of being misjudged or maybe misunderstood. And so I think for them, it wasn't forceful. It wasn't, I didn't have to convince them. It was like, wow, like I never really thought about it like that. So those kind of connections, I think, were real easily made. And so to me, I think that, them sharing their information, that they learned, or maybe some passion that they gained from kind of my contagious, that kind of goes back to Dad, is probably going to go pretty far that way. So like you said, word of mouth, I think, without getting too technical, like you said, too educational, too much, I don't know. I did some research kind of further on because I got real interested about some of the things that I didn't understand when I was kind of up on the hill with the veteran watchers. I think that was also a kind of a neat learning experience where, it probably sounds like I've been doing this my whole life, or my dad has, and it really hasn't been for very long. And so I think that is very motivating for kids and adults to really think like, wow, you can just get that excited. Even when you're a real live grown up, you still have things to learn and be excited about and talk about and share. And definitely. So that's, my teacher heart, speaking volumes there. But I think that it's such a wholesome connection too. And I think, like one of you said earlier, that's just what we need, the world needs. And so I think my students were just so thirsty, so hungry for that. And something they could all relate to. So I feel like the personal stories is what really helps with the advocacy myself.
I agree. I think for me, it was in 2017 when I, became fully retired. It was fun to go out there so much. And I started to think that there was a higher purpose to just in watching wolves and observing them and getting all into them. And I said, I want to start with my own state of Washington. And I started attending the WAG meeting, W-A-G, it's the Wolf Advisory Group. And I would go to those meetings, and we had a problem there with some ranchers that were advocating to have the wolves taken out by the Fish and Wildlife. And we all got together and we chipped in for a billboard. And the billboard was shaming the governor of Washington, saying that he says he's a conservative conservationist, but he is allowing wolves to be killed. And, it was a risk that we took that he would be offended by that or react to it. And he actually ended up sending a letter to the Fish and Wildlife saying he didn't want wolves being killed. So we really made an impact, and it felt good to do that because we had been at my wife was actually on the 6 o'clock news one night there in Seattle that we had this, I don't know if you call it a protest, but there was a court case going on where we wanted an injunction against killing some of the wolves from one of the packs. And she made I got to show you these someday. She made some banners and some signs, and we were out in front of the court building, and the local news came by and interviewed us and everything. So, sorry, it really felt good to make an impact. And after that, we've had Washington State is actually probably in a better spot than some of the other states are right now, as far as their wolf management. So we felt we really accomplished something there in Washington. So now I'm actually working with Wolves of the Rockies, and we have some projects. We're trying to get the wolves relisted on the endangered species list. So I'm working on some projects with them to get to that end right now. And it's, as you know, a couple of the states, Idaho, Montana especially, have especially anti-wolf policies going into effect. So we really need to work on the federal level to have them relisted. I think that would really make a difference, but it's going to take a lot of work. And I'm willing to get in there and be one of these people that helps make that happen.
Pat, can you describe for folks what relisting means, like why it's meaningful for the species, and what will change if wolves are relisted? And sort of if you can, how's the science going to work? Are they they're going to raise the number of what it means for a successful reintroduction? There's going to be new studies to show that the wolf population is not sustainable, or what's it going to look like? Why is that meaningful?
I think you really hit on exactly the right thing there, because putting an animal on the endangered species list means that you can't just go out and kill that animal. But the states are in charge of wolf management. So therefore, if they're on the federal endangered species list, the science would have to be looked at on what the management of wolves would be in that particular state. So that's why we want to do it, because it would make them re-examine the science. I mean, you hit it perfectly. The science would have to be re-examined as to what that particular state can, how many wolves that state can have in there. Well, based on their size and what
the carrying capacity
that they have now. And as you know, wolves kind of regulate their own population. If they get too many, they get too close to each other, the packs, right. That's just how it works with the wolves. So, but yeah, the states would have to relook at their science and then not be allowed probably to kill wolves until they had a science that showed that there's way too many, or for some reason they killing all their elk or something, which has always been an excuse, of course. But yeah, that's why that would be really important to do, is to have them back on the endangered species list.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what we've been hearing from some of the individuals in Idaho and some of the people even in Wisconsin, where they had the wolf hunt earlier this fall, earlier in the winter. I mean, what's the overriding feeling? Because you said you seem to believe that Washington State has sort of turned a corner, at least from your perspective, about the wolf population and the wolf myth legend and how they can somewhat coexist. When you're working with the Wolves of the Rockies, are you fairly involved in some of the reintroduction, or are you sort of on the periphery of what's going on for the wolves that are being reintroduced or going to be reintroduced on the Western Slope in Colorado?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the periphery on that part of it. What I've been working with them more on is, like I said, our project of social media and getting to this relisting of them. So what we've kind of done is kind of laid out a big plan, and now we're just starting to initiate it. And for instance, I've given them some videos and pictures to use in the campaign. So and then we're going to also talk about, we talk once a week about how we're going to make this work and have the most impact on the most people. And when getting a big project done and you say, okay, we want to relist wolves, that's a huge deal. I mean, it doesn't just happen overnight. Mm-hmm. You have to work on politicians and you have to work on people getting involved in that. Sometimes it's hard to get the ear of these people. So basically, our strategy is to blitz social media and to get around to showing how the policies that are in, especially Idaho and Montana, are wildly crazy. I mean, to kill 90% of your wolves is like, what are you talking about? What? That's crazy. I mean, I just don't get it. But unfortunately, now we got to work hard to reverse that.
Mm. Who makes the final decision on re-enlistment? Like, who's the last person that needs to be convinced?
I believe it would be U.S. Fish and Wildlife, but I believe that there is some input that could be had from, for instance, Department of the Interior.
Right. Yeah.
I've been actually sending letters to Deb Haaland, who's the Department of the Interior. Even the president, I think, or Congress can, force an executive order of some kind. I don't know if that's going to happen. But I have read just recently that 85 congressmen sent a letter to the president saying they want something done about those wolf hunts. So we're starting to see a toe in the door to just start all this off. And that's kind of how it has to start, because it's not going to be an overwhelming push, and they're going to go, okay, we're going to do it. So it's just got to be this constant push and constant awareness of this situation. And that's how we will eventually get it done, I think. I hope.
Is the ultimate goal of wolf advocacy special protections? I think the fear for some people is that the goalposts will just keep being moved. That, as wolves on the ESA are turned back over to state management, that there will sort of always be a move for new science that will end up multiplying those numbers that were set to mean successful reintroduction. Does it feel like that is what's happening and the ultimate goal is special protections?
No, I would say not. That's something that helps. But the end all is to say states need to have sensible wolf management.
Got it.
And to do that, we need new science. Some of the numbers they're using are from years and years ago. Mm-hmm. So basically, I think this strategy says, stop, wait, let's slow down. Let's not kill 90% of your wolves first. Let's find out what your sensible wolf management is for your state. That's kind of what the end would be.
And I think what Dad's saying too is just, it's so different. The environments where wolves are, across our nation it's completely different. So when I was teaching my students, some of my students got really interested and said, wait, hey, like Mrs. Parks, I found out about like the Mexican wolf and this kind of wolf. And it's like, yeah, Yellowstone's not the only place, they're like, wait, they look different. Wait, what we read here looks different. And, they're reading articles and, the collaring process and wolf tracking. And that kind of advocacy is really neat too. And that's why I really appreciate what Wolf Connection does, because I feel like I was able to introduce students to possible lifestyle changes or career goals in using science in a way they would have never thought that they could incorporate, like a scientific mentality, advocacy, interpersonal, nature, in those kind of ways. And so it really kind of got them looking at, yes, we know Mrs. Parks is crazy about Yellowstone. Yeah, she goes there with her dad, blah, blah, blah. But this is like all over, right? But the needs and the issues are different. So to slap on like one solid number, like here's our number, this is what we're working towards, not entirely true. To the layman's perspective, I mean, if you ask people on the street, like what animals are on the endangered species list right now, that's not really like everyday knowledge. If that's not your jam, right? Like if you're like, I'm into this, I'm into that, that's not really something that's kind of like, are you smarter than a fifth grader kind of thing? Like some kids, if they learn it in school, might know that. But I think the awareness part, and like Dad said, with social media, I mean, that's how people gather a lot of their information, especially if they're looking for alternative media, right? They're looking for different sources of information. Pictures and videos, those are huge. When I started posting things, just on my own personal Facebook, I had people coming out that like, I had no idea had kind of a special soft spot for wolves. And it's like, what can I do? How can I do this? How can I listen to this podcast? Send me the link. It's like, those small little steps. I mean, there's big goals and there's, the big head honchos like Wolfman Pat here. I'm, not at that level, but I feel like they're definitely using all of those resources available to them just to get the word out, which I think it's working.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting that you are teaching your kids these practical applications, tangible things they can do with their love for wildlife. I wish I had known there were career paths to that at a young age, because it would have been such an exciting avenue to go down. So it's pretty awesome. And then I also think it's worth mentioning again how adults being excited and passionate, how important that is for kids to see, because it's sadly true that you just really don't see it that often. And I won't speak for John, but I assume he agrees. We were lucky enough to work with a lot of passionate adults, and I think it really was beneficial for kids to see that you can be an adult in a workspace and still be excited and passionate and have that childlike energy come out. You were saying when you were watching Wolves in Yellowstone that there were some topics that you didn't quite grasp right out of the gate, and I'm curious what those were.
I have my homework in front of me, so I'm happy to tell you that. So so on my trip, because I'm just a teacher no matter where I am or what I'm doing. So when I left my Yellowstone trip, and I have 2 kids and I was traveling by myself, which always feels odd that I don't have a diaper bag or snacks or something to carry with me. And I thought, what, I'm going to write about my experience. I don't want to forget it. So I wrote this little article. It's like 7 or 8 pages with pictures and links and things like that. And it was kind of just more of a ode to my dad and a thank you to the, wolf watchers. But it was something somebody brought up. Yeah, I have like canine phylogenetic trees, and I was getting crazy with it. I mean, you guys, I don't even know. It's like cue the biology classification lesson. It was definitely my jam. But what I did end up looking up, because somebody was talking about certain diseases that certain wolves are more resistant to, like canine diseases like distemper, right? So I'm hearing them talk about, well, the black wolves are more resistant than the gray wolves. I'm like, what in the world is going on? Like, what does that mean? And I have a link to the scholarly article in my silly little journal that I just did on that little, puddle jumper plane on the way home. But that's kind of something that got me interested and got me going. And you better believe that I came back to my students and I was like, you guys, this is so cool. Let me tell you all about this. And that was a little bit too far, but like you said, just to share that excitement was pretty cool. And like I said, there's, some people that were, very technical and very, with field notes and in that way. But I don't think that it was too far-fetched, because everybody would entertain the idea. Like, people would ask questions. It wasn't like, oh, I know everything there is to know. It's like, yeah, but what about this? Like, what do you think about that? Like, last time we noticed, so it was a lot about like patterns of behaviors, kind of being able to anticipate things. People excited, right? Like, I'm leaving in 3 days. You guys think that the pups are going to come out? Because I got to see them before I leave the park, stuff like that. But those were like regular conversations that had a lot of scientific, really a lot of information built in there.
In terms like alpha male, beta male, yearlings,
yep.
2-year-olds, some of the ones that are more subservient to the other ones,
yes.
they're the submissive ones and what that means and everything. So yeah, once you're there, though, and you start digesting it, it's super cool to see the relationships within the pack.
Yep.
And all of this, and Stephen, I agree with you, and I echo what you said before. I think when there's an excitement with older individuals, if you're a child and you see adults and we see it here at Wolf Connection a lot, where the kids will come here and say, "Boy, you guys enjoy scooping poop," and we go, "You have no idea the amount of." Bonding that has to go on, to be able, we tell them it's an honor. Yeah, it's an honor to go in and scoop that. And there's a specific relationship that has to occur in order for you to really go in with just a scooper to change water, to hike these wolves, to do all these things. So to Stephen, to your point, to everybody's point here, is that, yeah, the excitement when it's in older individuals and they see that, I think it really percolates and it really transfers to the younger generation that there is, and Stephen, I agree with you too. Because when you're a kid, all you think of is I can be a vet. And the vet is the veterinarian, in other words. That's the place where I can go. I can help animals and I love animals. So that's where I go. And if you really want to go far off, you think zoologist. And that was like the two paths that I remember when I was a kid. It was like, you're going to be at a zoo or you're going to be a vet.
I've got a funny story about that too, is that there's one white wolf in the park and she's the alpha female of the Wapiti pack. And she's also the oldest wolf in the park. And it's always a treat for us wolf watchers to see her. And I hadn't seen her in maybe 4 or 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Last November, I had a close-in encounter where right at the Tower Junction parking lot, she was maybe 200 yards away sitting there. And I think that's the picture I showed you. And I'll eventually send you some videos of the howling. The whole pack was howling. And I got like full face shots of the white alpha female. And I'm literally hyperventilating. And I'm like, oh my God, look what I just saw. And I'm doing videos and I'm taking pictures. And then they finally took off and went back to their southern area where their pack usually is. And I remember driving to a spot where I could make a call. And I called Steve Johnson. Mm-hmm. And I'm literally, you know what I just saw? He's like, calm down, breathe. And I said, I just had the greatest encounter of my life right now. It was just like, so at my age to have that kind of reaction was like, I don't even know where it came from, but I was just so excited. I couldn't even breathe hardly. It was crazy. So.
I mean, that's what you want. That's what exactly you want. What did you feel, Pat? What was the similarities when you came here to Wolf Connection that you could draw on from being, because you were at the park many, many times and you come down to Wolf Connection. What was the experience like for you? Do you tell everybody what that was like when you were able to be up close and personal with some of our pack?
Well, I've been telling people that not only it's just for us to experience the wolves, it's what you guys are doing for the youth of LA that needs a little help there. So I said, it's not just about the wolves, it's about the people. And that's what made it more special, because we're in Yellowstone, we're freely watching these wolves. The Wolf Connection has a purpose that what they're doing, and the wolves are part of that. But also to see them so close in was great too. And then of course for me, I connected with Mia because of the vocal cord issue. And I was like, so special for you guys to invite me back there to see her. And it was even more touching that sorry that they most of the people there said that she doesn't really come to people that easily. And she came over to me and licked my fingers. Mm. So it was just really cool. But I've been telling people about the good things that you do. And the wolves are part of it, but not all of it, because it's about people as well. And that's why you guys are special.
You think actually having contact with a wolf like Mia changes your perspective of wild wolves in any way?
I don't know if it changes it, but it just reinforces that these animals are so they can go through anything. They're warriors. Like if Mia doesn't have a vocal cord and I'm not going to have one, so what? I can still survive. I can have a great life. So I'm sorry. She gave me inspiration. And then I noticed that to see these animals so close, it's just so, after being in Yellowstone, it's so inviting to just touch them. And I was also watching the other people that have less experience with wolves than I do. I was watching them and they were just so enamored with the whole thing. They were so happy to be doing this. Mm-hmm. And it was fun to see their reaction and also to just be there and do it. Like, I can't wait to come back.
I can't wait for you to come back. Kristin, obviously you're invited too if you want to.
Thank you. Yes. Well, and
hey, we'll come and scoop poop anytime.
Yeah, I mean, so like Steven said, it's so, and we had the reverse effect for, at least for myself, because again, I haven't been to Yellowstone. Steven was there before, for being so up close 2 to 3 days a week all the time here at Wolf Connection, and then to go to Yellowstone where you guys, that's your playground and you really know the ins and outs of it, to be hundreds of yards away, to be sometimes a mile or so away, you still feel that pull even at that distance. Because a lot of times we try and tell people sometimes the bond doesn't form if you can touch. It's there. Sometimes there are wolves that I don't touch that often that I have a huge bond with, even just through the fence or even through distance. You said it reinforced that for you. Is it, what was something that you took away other than, I mean, obviously the mission, and you said it so beautifully. Was there anything else that stuck with you after you left here and you went back home?
I think it was just the whole story of what you're trying to do and your dedication to doing it and in the way you're doing it. And people like, for instance, you said you can't get rid of John Wood now because he feels it too. And he wants to go there and he wants to participate. I do too. Like possible, hopefully after my throat surgery, I can go and spend a week there and say, hey, I just want to be there. And I think what it takes away is that we learn that these wolves are also a part of healing somebody else, a human being. And that's what's really important too. It's a different thing than Yellowstone, but it's still in the same realm of the animal that we revere so much and are so into.
And I think from what it makes me think of as just as an educator, I've always heard about programs with animals and children and how there's kind of that special connection. And while all of us educators try to reach all students, we can't reach every kid. We can't reach every student as much as we would like to. And so there's always been, you've probably heard of programs where there's, very, they bring dogs into the schools. And obviously you've heard about them like in hospitals and things like that, but it's pretty amazing to see a connection like with a small child, like who maybe is very nervous about reading or not confident and will read all day long to a dog sitting docile in their lap, while they're petting them. My sister has a lot of experience with some horse therapy. So she's talked to me about the great things that have happened between horses and teens. And it so much makes me think of what you're doing and being able to kind of make that connection between kids, not that they're not connecting with other people, but there's something that animals can do that we cannot. And a lot of times it's those kids or those people in general that are very empathic, right? That they are like feeling a lot of really special connections that sometimes can't be like pinpointed. You can't put it into words. There's an acceptance. There's kind of something that's, there's no judgment. It's very wholesome, real, natural, could be spiritual, a lot of different ways that people could describe it. And so, to me, it kind of feels like the last time I was at Yellowstone, it was very much so, like you say, like being a fly on the wall, right? Well, I kind of felt like that in Yellowstone, where you are just able to observe without, kind of disturbing like a natural habitat in that way. And so I felt that connection without actually, like being right next to the animals or touching them. But sometimes that's actually what somebody else needs. So the whole idea of them being in close proximity, that takes a lot of bravery, right? That takes a lot of trust. And sometimes you can't get that between two people. So an animal and somebody in need can be very therapeutic for sure.
No, the animal portion of it is, we always say this around here, is that the wolves are constantly teaching every day. They teach me something every time I walk through, and it may seem like status quo, and it changes every day around here. And it's always keeping us on our toes, which I think is good also. And I think it's a good teaching tool, is that we, as much as you may think some certain things are routine, there's always something that's going to come up that's going to tap into something a little bit deeper, that's going to really stretch your comfort zone. And really, we talk about going past the edges of where you're comfortable. and finding out what is stopping me from getting through this barrier or this wall, and whatever it may be, whether it's emotional or physical or whatever it may be. And, to your dad's point about Mia and Theo's the other one that doesn't have their vocal cords anymore. And what we always say is that they still howl with the pack, and their voice always still needs to be heard. And the fact that there's, again, these teaching moments just constantly come up. And I think it's something beautiful that the more people I see that understand that and see that is, again, it's just, as you know, as a teacher, Kristin, you're just reaching one person, two people, three people, whatever it is at a time. And I think that always helps with that. I'm going to ask my last question, Stephen, if he has something. He's always thinking. He's very, actually, no, I have a question before I ask my last question, because, were you guys, I know we're going from emotional to whatever. Were you guys, because you love bison so much, were you ever in a bison jam anytime you're in Yellowstone? Because when we went to Yellowstone, we got in a bison jam our first time.
Yeah, you can't go to Yellowstone without being in a bison jam. I mean, we've been in 20-minute bison jams. Oh. And I mean, the only time they're bad is when you hear about a wolf sighting somewhere and you can't get there.
Right.
Otherwise, they're fine. I mean, nobody really wants to be in a bison jam, but except maybe this girl.
I know. I love it. But, so they're wallowing, and there's a lot of playful interaction between the calves and the mamas. And it's, they're pretty close, I mean, don't roll down your window, don't pet the bison, but that is kind of a cool close encounter, because in Yellowstone, you don't always get to be that close to any animal, but there's plenty to go around.
Well, I remember one time there was a bison probably 3 feet from the side of the car. My wife was with me in the car. The first thing she did is went over and locked the door. I couldn't stop laughing. She reached over and locked the door. I'm like, what do you think is going to come inside? Well, if that close, you never know.
We got into a pretty bad one on that bridge. Remember that, John? That one was wild. They were just coming off that slope right over the bridge. That one took a long time.
They're pretty agile. Awesome. Yeah, for 2,000-pound animals, they are, boy, they navigate hills right? better than I can. It's crazy how amazing they are. With that, so my last question for the two of you is, and Stephen may have something else, is when you both hear the word wolf, what is something that comes to your mind?
Well, I'll say strength, wildness, perseverance, and regal beauty, where you look at this animal and just go, wow. To look at their face and look at their body, and like when their winter coats are on, they're just so fluffy. And then, I don't know, it just, maybe there's not an answer for every person for this, but some of the wolf watchers and the people that you have on your program, and that we're just so attracted to that. It's like, this animal is special. But I think it's all those things I said at the beginning too, because I've heard about necropsies they've done on wolves that have had like broken jaws and broken legs, and they just go out and do what they do. They don't let it bother them. They don't let them get us down, get them down. And that's what they're teaching. I think the people that you have there, they're teaching them that, and that's what's important.
So I did my homework, and I knew you were going to ask this question because I watched all the videos, and I'm a word kind of person. And I settled on one word because I thought maybe it's not done very much. And it might have already been used. That's okay. So my word is majestic. And it is because I was able to, we weren't too far away the last time I got to lock eyes with 1229. It was an amazing experience. I felt like she was like looking through my soul. And I felt like even through that scope, it was like a moment in time that I just wanted to freeze. And it made me think of the way that, there's a lot of fantasy, like video games and movies and things like that. And everybody kind of has their special, like mythical creature, right? Like a unicorn or a dragon. And I feel like a wolf is like that, But hey, it's real. It actually exists. It seems like it's not real because there is something so majestic about it, something in the eyes, something that's familiar because a lot of us, are dog people, but so out of touch at the same time. And so for us to be able to do this in Yellowstone is kind of like fantasy and reality together, and to experience it, whether it's close up, at Wolf Connection, or if it's through the lens or a scope, at a national park or, somewhere else. I think that it's pretty breathtaking. It'll make you stop and think, and whether you want to go back for more or not, that might be different for everybody. But I think once you're hooked, because there's something in you that wants to experience that kind of like magic, something kind of like fantasy. So it's kind of a neat experience to know that that's a real creature. It actually exists. And there's
Definitely.
more to it than everybody thinks beyond the myth, for sure.
My favorite wolf is 1048, and it's because I have his picture when he was a yearling on my phone. See if I can show you through the thing.
Yeah.
That was taken when he was a yearling, and that's always been my favorite wolf.
So it's not my baby picture or a picture of me on his phone.
I know,
it's okay. I'm totally fine with it, but
grandkids aren't on the phone, just a wolf on the phone.
We get it. We're like your pups. It's fine.
Let me ask one more question, John. All right, because I don't know about you, John, but I thought the more that we heard these answers at the end of these podcasts, the clearer the picture would become about why those of us that are in love with wolves are so attracted to them, are so like, we just have this thing for them that's sort of unexplainable. I'm like, I don't know if I get it any more than I did when we started. Like, why when certain people look at wolves, they're just sucked into the moment. They see this like this timeless, wild beauty, and then other folks look at them and see pests, right? And it's like there's such hard lines drawn, and I still don't know if I get why those of us that see them as this beautiful, majestic thing see them that way. And I mean, even though I do feel that way, I don't understand. Like, what have I experienced in my life that has prepared me to look at a wolf and see beauty? I don't get it. But maybe something that will help clear that up is when you look at bison, Kristin, what is it that you feel?
Yeah, that's a good one. I wasn't prepared for that.
I'd rather people not be prepared. You know what, John? That's it, dude.
Okay.
We're setting a rule from now on, and that's that anyone we're interviewing, they got to stop the podcast before the last question. So they're
okay.
So they're just
all right.
So they're just so surprised. Yeah, that's it. We're setting it. Post it up.
I think that it's pretty incredible to how close you can be to such a large, massive, like how often, and not by choice. I'm not saying we don't go seek them out. Like you said, they're always on the road in Yellowstone. So they're, right outside your car window. So that I think is probably, I'm a short I'm 5'2", and so I feel, real short and small everywhere I go. And so to be next to this 2,000-pound creature, like it's very, not humbling, like something bad's going to happen to me, but kind of unreal, because you don't ever see. I mean, when you think of whatever, like an elephant or a jungle, I mean, I read kids' books all the time and like, fun facts about animals. You can't imagine, an animal that's 100 feet long, like a whale that weighs 2 tons. Like, you just can't even wrap your head around it.
Giants.
But to be right next to a bison, like, and they're like that hump that's on their back, and then they have all this hair. Yeah. It's so cute. It's so fantastic. But it's like the cutest, biggest animal like I've ever been next to. And I love it. It makes me feel.
And that's so cool.
So good.
But but I understand that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's no, like in your relationship to a bison, I get that. Like I can relate to that. It's like when you look at a mountain, you're just like, this thing is so giant. I can't believe I'm standing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you're in a lightning storm. You know what I mean? It's just nature being massive and uncontrollable, and it's so beautiful.
Yes.
But there's something irrational about how we feel about wolves and canines in general. And it's just so interesting to me, because no matter how many times we ask this question, it doesn't make it any clearer why that's the case. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't it?
I think it's the eyes. I think it's wolf eyes looking into your soul, and all of us have, it touches us in some kind of very raw way. And so that's why it's going to be unique. It's probably not understood. Maybe that's why we love it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. No, I totally agree.
And I think when you ask that question too, like if you were to be serious and go, no, come on, tell me, what is it? Yeah. And like, okay, stop. I don't know. I just want to be around them all the time.
It's wild.
Like, well, no, tell me why though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just do. Okay, leave me alone. I just want.
No, it's true, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it's true.
Yeah.
That also spurs me on to advocate because I love these animals so much. It's like, wait a minute, I need to do more than just watch them. So that makes me want to get more involved, and I think that's a good thing because, especially in my retirement days, it's like, what else? I play some golf here and there, and like, I just want to go to Yellowstone. I'll tell my wife, can we just move to Gardner or something,
Yeah.
But
and that's why I was asking before, like, what do you think you have in common with these other wolf watchers, these serious wolf watchers? And that's kind of what I was getting at is like, what is it about people that are just enamored by wolves? Like we must have had a shared life experience that prepared us to look at a wolf and see something that's unexplainable and that doesn't happen for everybody. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just curious about that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've always been curious too, because I think all of us wolf watchers have this in common too. Like when we go back home, there's not that many people we can talk to about it because how many wolf watchers are in the United States, right? Not that many. So the odds that we would go home and go, hey, Joe, guess what? I saw 1048. And he did it. He's like,
K.
I got to go to the market. I'll see you later. And so that's why we love to be around each other so much when we're there.
I think it's this, and Steven, you're right, man. What's a joy for me, I can't speak for you two, but I think is the fact that when we host this, I always love to hear others and the way that it affects them. And to me, that it's exposed, I think, a little bit more in me about wanting to allow others to share how they feel. Because I think a lot of this comes down to that there's a lot of times there isn't an outlet. And a lot of times people, as the four of us have all said here just now, it's this, there's a wild something ancient inside, I think, all of us as human beings, as Homo sapiens, whatever it may be, however you want to define it, that I think there's parts of us that understand that this is a being that has, through one way or another, connected with us in some past life. And again, however you want to quantify it as an individual, that leads us to believe that it is polarizing one way or the other. Because I feel, and we've had other people say this, that, and you said it before, Kristin, when you look into a wolf's eyes, something is awakened or stirred about that I don't think many other creatures on this planet can do. And it comes down to the fact that, and this is just speaking from opinion, that we are a lot of the times canine people. We're canine or feline people, I think, more so than not. And for whatever reason, the canine end of it, the canine brings those things out. And because we are so strongly associated with dogs, because we have that partnership with them, and when seeing something that isn't domesticated, that we go home and we see our dog every day, to see something from a mile away to say, wow, this is an animal that I feel this draw to, but I don't know what it is. And it makes me want to dig deeper into myself, my soul, whatever it is, to figure out why this connection is here. And for better or for worse, I think it brings out the best and the worst in individuals. And these are the things that we try to delve into here and that we try to talk about. And I think that's, if nothing else, this is what this podcast has become. And Steve and I started this over a year ago now. And I don't think the question gets more confusing. I think it's become more elaborate and it's become
it's more complex. Yeah.
Out in the open. It's more complex, which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so wild, man.
It's wild. Pat, give everybody a place where they can go. Are you on social media, any websites or things that people can see your photos, your videos, anything like that before we let you go? I don't know if there's anything that you post.
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, Patrick Jennings, and you'll see a picture of the Wolfmobile on there. Most of my photos and videos I give to the 06 Legacy page because they have so many followers that I think it gets out to more people that way to see some of the beauty of these animals and hopefully educate them. When I do a publishing of a photo, I try to educate at the same time. And then Wolves of the Rockies, and then that's about it, really. I don't want the pictures to be just for me. I kind of realized that a while back, and I said I want these to be educational and try to get out to more people. It's not just sending them out and going, hey, look at this, So 06 Legacy webpage is probably the best place to see some of my pics and videos. Or else on her phone.
Well, send us your phone.
Mail your phone.
There's a lot of them.
There's one of them. I want to extend love and positive vibes to you, Pat, for your surgery next week. I know you have that.
Thank you.
For those, please just explain to everybody, because we sort of touched on the periphery of it, and I, just if you don't mind, if you don't want to talk about it, I just, the reason why we've been talking about the bond with Mia, the reason you've been speaking about your voice, just let everyone know what we're alluding to and why you're having surgery next week, just so we have some sort of context.
Okay.
To
that's fine.
If that's okay with you.
I have cancer of the throat, and unfortunately, it's the second time I've had it. 2.5 years ago, I had it. They took out a growth on the vocal cords, and I did radiation. It was pretty painful. My neck was all like crispy red, but they got rid of it. So 2.5 years later, I had another growth on there, and they biopsied it, and it was cancer again. So the second time, the only solution is to take out the vocal cord, the larynx. So basically what will happen is I won't be able to speak. I'll have a hole right there in my neck. By the way, I was never a smoker either, but I'll have a hole right there in my neck, and we hope to get an implant where I can touch it and I'll be able to at least sound like I do now, which is not great, but it's better than nothing. So number one priority is to get rid of the cancer. So on August 12th, I'll be having the big surgery to take that out. It's a long surgery and a long recovery. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. Our fingers are crossed here for you. Like I said, positive vibes to you, to your family, Kristin, to you and your family through, all of next week. It has been,
absolutely.
Pat, it was a pleasure to meet you 2 weeks ago. Kristin, pleasure to meet you here. You guys, again, an open invitation at any point to come back on. Please, Pat, please keep us posted, or Kristin, whoever's better, please keep us posted about the surgery, how everything goes. And, you guys are more than welcome if you're ever in Los Angeles to swing by Wolf Connection. And we'd love to have Pat, we'd love to have you back. And Kristin, we'd love to have you for the first time. So, if you guys are ever in the area, just
I would love
give
that.
us a contact. And
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to work it out like this, because it was hard for me to carry my voice through the hour. So I think it worked out really good, and you guys have been super about understanding that and making it kind of something special for us too. So, like I said in the beginning, we're honored to be on your program and be able to share this together.
No, it was great. It's the least that we could do for you. So. So Pat Jennings, Kristin Parks, once again, thank you guys so much. Howls to everybody out there, and Stephen and I will be with you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Looking to support Wolf Connection or sponsor one of the wolves in our pack? Just go to wolfconnection.org, click on the donate tab, and find out more information.